So good morning, everybody. Welcome. It's Monday, May 3rd, 2021, and President Kelly McDonald is not able to join us today. He does send his regrets, so you're stuck with me. But thankfully, we have Bill Nugent joining us this morning to kick off Wellbeing in the Law Week. And Bill is the, if you are not aware, the director of the Maine Assistance Program. So I'm going to turn things over to Bill right off the bat. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Angela. I want to thank you and the MSBA for letting me have my time here on Bar Talk. And this is a special day because it's the beginning of the first day of Wellbeing in Law Week. And I have to say that this is the second Wellbeing in Law Week, that's second annual Wellbeing in Law Week. And I barely knew about the first Wellbeing in Law Week a year ago. And so many of you may not be familiar with it, but it's an event that really was a long time coming. And there were a lot of people and a lot of organizations that were involved to bring about Wellbeing in Law Week today. And it really began back in 2016. There were two reports published in two different specialized journals involving a look and a survey at mental health between lawyers and judges, and also a second study involving law students. And the reports received a fair amount of, especially the report on attorneys, received a fair amount of publicity, including front page articles on the New York Times and the Washington Post. And the reason for that was the results of the survey. The survey looked at various aspects of mental health, as well as alcohol use among members of the legal profession, attorneys and judges. And what they came up with in terms of statistics in this survey were that, and there were almost 13,000 participants in the survey. They found that 21% of the members of the survey exhibited symptoms of problem drinking. That ranged from very severe alcoholism to alcohol consumption at a rate and of a nature that, if extended over a period of time, would lead to serious, potentially serious health problems. So that's more than 1 in 5. And that actually was the headline of, I think it was the Washington Post, that said 1 out of every 5 members of this profession has a drinking problem. That's kind of the publicity that the legal profession really wanted or needed. The most significant and most really serious statistic regarded clinical depression. The survey found that 28% of the participants exhibited symptoms of clinical depression. With regard to anxiety, the survey demonstrated that 25% of that population displayed clinical anxiety. And finally, with regard to stress, 19% of the survey participants exhibited clinical stress symptoms. Now, the problem drinking statistic was 21%. It dealt only with alcohol. The survey wanted also to look at consumption of drugs, but the data that was obtained were not of sufficient value to actually come up with any kind of reliable conclusions. So when you look at the 21%, this only involves consumption of alcohol, which is in fact the drug of choice among members of the legal profession. But it doesn't include people using recreational or prescription drugs in a manner that that is not prescribed or recommended. So the problem of substance use disorder among the profession is certainly higher than 21%. In any event, as a result of the publicity and these surveys, and by the way, the survey of law students, which involved a little over 8,000 law students throughout the country, showed rates on these 3 categories significantly higher than the rates of attorneys and judges. So shortly after these surveys came out at a meeting of the American Bar Association, a group of organizations came together to try and look at what can we do about this. And the original members of the organization were COLAP, which is the American Bar Association Conference on Lawyer Assistance Programs, of which MAP is a member. And there are equivalent lawyer assistance programs in all 50 states and District of Columbia, and also all of the provinces in Canada as well. But in addition, the other groups that came together were the National Organization of Bar Counsel, which is the organization of disciplinary offices throughout the United States, as well as the Association for Professional Responsibility Lawyers, and that's the national group of lawyers who represent attorneys who are having disciplinary problems. And the last two organizations were very interested in coming together with COLAP, because it has become clear over time, both to Bar Counsel and to the people that represented lawyers who were in trouble, that a significant portion of the cases that came forward did not involve kind of bad attorneys or evil attorneys or people with malicious intent. Rather, it involved good attorneys who did bad things, unethical things, as a result of some underlying mental health or substance use disorder. And so these three organizations started the movement, and it was joined later by the National Conference of Chief Justices, by representatives of the malpractice insurance industry, because they also realized that a lot of malpractice cases were based on or were the result of attorneys who were having difficulty because of mental health or substance use. And so what was assembled was what's called the National Task Force on Lawyer Wellbeing. And the following year, they released a very comprehensive report, which was about 90 pages in length, and came up with 44 recommendations to foster well-being in the profession. And the reason the emphasis was on well-being was the whole goal of this movement is to prevent people, attorneys and judges, from getting to the point where their illness impairs their ability to practice or to judge. If we can get people, to attorneys in the profession and judges and others, to get on a program and really look at their well-being, look at it closely. Hopefully, the statistics that we have that came out of the 2016 reports will be a lot lower in 10, 15 years. So after the report came out, and there was a fair amount of publicity about that, people recognized that there needed to be a permanent organization to move forward with the movement and promote the movement of well-being among attorneys. And so what was established was the Institute for Well-Being in Law. And it's kind of it has a broad brush. It's interested in all aspects of well-being, not only attorneys and judges in terms of their professional lives, but also in terms of their personal lives as well. And well-being is a pretty amorphous term. And depending upon schools of philosophy or psychology, you can get fairly different definitions of it. But to the general population, most of us we know well-being when we see it, or we know roughly what it is. And one of the best definitions, I think, comes from the field of positive psychology, which really says that well-being is promoted to allow people to be happy and engaged in a meaningful life. And I think that's probably the best way to describe it. Well-being Week came up a year ago, and it's gotten a lot more publicity now, this second time around. And it's divided into 5 days, and each day has a particular focus on aspects of well-being. And you can see on the, I'm not sure whether the board is up or not, people can see it, but the Monday, which is today, is physical well-being. That's the focus on it. And it really, it really involves things that everybody has heard since their health class in middle school or junior high school. It's important to eat well, to get exercise, to get sufficient sleep, to recover from stress, and to moderate use of any substances that could be addictive, whether it's nicotine or alcohol or some other drug. The important thing about physical well-being, the important fact that I want to bring out, has to do with research that has been fairly recent in terms of history, but it clearly demonstrates that things like eating well, getting sufficient sleep have a profound effect, not only on our physical health, but on our emotional and psychological well-being. Exercise is extremely important. A lot of research has been shown to demonstrate that exercise is involved in the development and continued development of the prefrontal cortex. It's used by the medical, recommended rather by the medical profession for especially older people to help maintain their cognitive skills and ability. And there are some studies that have come out to show that even very brief periods of exercise, like a 5-minute walk, can stimulate the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain dealing with memory, and positively affect memory. There are also other aspects of the brain that receive benefit from exercise. So in addition to the kind of physical health benefits that we've talked about for years, it's becoming clear that exercise and sleep and proper eating has a profound effect on our minds as well as our bodies. The second day, Tuesday, you see talking about spiritual well-being, and that really, the focus really there is to foster a sense of meaning and purpose in all aspects of our lives, not just professional, but also our personal. And also to align our life and work to serve our own personal values, to look at whether or not what we are doing and the work we are performing really are moving forward with what we value as our personal important values. Wednesday is occupational and intellectual well-being, and that really the focus there is to continue our legal education, continue developing knowledge and skills in our profession, and to strive for personal growth in our profession, growth and satisfaction, and also, very importantly, to develop financial stability, which especially in these days is extremely important. And as somebody who was a solo practitioner for many years before I became director of MAP, financial stability is not always easy in any law firm, but especially if you're a solo professional. On Thursday, the focus is on social well-being, which really involves connectedness. And that is being connected to other people and to figure out and develop, if necessary, support groups, people that can help you in various aspects of not only your professional life, but also your personal life, to provide you with support and guidance, and at times, maybe even accountability. One of the benefits and curses of electronic communication, I think, and I think we've all experienced it actually during this past year with COVID, is that personal face-to-face meetings are a lot less common than they were, certainly when I started practicing law. Attorneys don't get together personally anywhere near as often as they used to. And I think the profession has suffered as a result of that. And I think individual practitioners have also suffered because we are social animals as human beings, and we really need that connection. So I think Thursday, the social well-being aspect of, or focus rather, of this week is really, really important. And finally, on Friday, we're looking at emotional well-being, which is really understanding our own emotions and how we use them and how they are affected by our profession. And also, when we have difficulties with our emotions or with our mental or psychological well-being, we need to get professional help when we need it. One of the aspects of both of the two surveys that I talked about, in addition to looking at the degree of problems in the profession and among law students, they also looked at how members of each population utilized resources that were available to assist them in issues such as depression, anxiety, alcohol use. And what really became clear from the survey was that both populations, both bench and bar and law students, greatly underutilized the resources that were available. And that's something I really want to point out to you today, because I think it's extremely important. One of the problems that we have as lawyers is we are in a competitive profession. Most of our work is involved some level of adversarial process. So putting up the front of being strong and competent is really important to us. And it's often viewed by many people that if they seek help for an emotional or mental problem or a substance use problem, it's a demonstration of some sort of weakness. And we really don't want to show weakness to the community of professionals that we work with or the community of clients that we have. That's a serious problem. I've seen it a lot in the 13 years that I've been director of MAP. Attorneys are very, very reluctant to get help, even when they know they need help. It's a real problem. Confidentiality is a huge issue, understandably. And lawyers, unfortunately, we solve other people's problems. So we tend to think that we can solve our own. And that's a bad state of mind, I can tell you. It's easy to solve our client, not always easy, but we can solve our clients' problems most of the time. Trying to solve our own problems, we don't really have the perspective or often the knowledge to be able to deal with that. And it's really important to get help when we need it. One of the interesting experiences I've had over time is taking attorneys who have had alcohol problems and have come to MAP for assistance, taking them to their first AA meeting. And almost without exception, I'll take somebody to the meeting and they will be very, very nervous because they're afraid they're going to see clients at the AA meeting. Maybe their reputation will be destroyed. And I remember particularly one day taking this person who had sought help, who actually was a personal friend of mine. But he was terrified of going to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. When he first contacted me, he talked about his problem and explained everything that was going on. And the last thing he said to me is, he said, "Nuge, I'm not going to have to go to AA meetings, am I?" And my response was, "Well, as a matter of fact, you are, and I'm going to take you to your first one tomorrow at noontime." So I took him to the AA meeting. It was a big meeting. It's a very good meeting that's in Portland. And he found a seat, and I sat with him at the extreme corner of the room, trying to be as unobtrusive as possible. And I took him there early because it's a lot easier to walk into an empty room with someone like that than it is to walk into a full room. But we hadn't been there for probably 2 minutes when who walked through the door but an attorney that he knew, but he didn't know was an alcoholic. But the attorney was also his friend. And the first reaction that attorney had when he saw the person I was with was, "Hey, it's great to see you. Welcome here. glad to have you here. Gave him his card, told him anything you need, just let me know. And that happened about 3 or 4 other times as 3 or 4 other attorneys came into the room. And it changed everything for him. And it's happened numerous times with attorneys that I've seen going to AA meetings. There's a lot of support out there. What we need if we have problems is support, whether it's a substance use disorder or whether it's a problem with depression or anxiety or stress. We need help. And sometimes it's peer assistance like it is in AA, and sometimes it really requires professional assistance. There are fine therapists throughout the state of Maine who are very capable of working with attorneys. There are some therapists who are very good therapists, but don't do well with attorneys because we are not the easiest clients to deal with or patients to deal with. We're very facile with language. We're great with arguments and things like that. And very often we can kind of dance around the issues that need to be addressed in therapy. And it requires good therapists to be able to pin attorneys down to deal with the underlying problem and really get to the base of what's wrong and move forward with taking care of the issue. So the thing that I really want to emphasize is if you have a problem, help is out there and you need to get that help. And if it's really difficult for you to do that, one resource that you have is MAP, the Maine Assistance Program for Lawyers and Judges. We've been around almost for 20 years. We're created by a rule of the state Supreme Court, and we provide free and confidential both by court rule and by statute, all of the work that we do and all of the communications that we have are privileged and confidential, so that if you have a problem, you can come to MAP, you can talk to us, we can perhaps guide you in the direction of a good therapist, or if it's an issue, something such as substance abuse, we can hook you up with another attorney who's in recovery, who's been where you have been. Same thing is true of depression. So if you're dealing with or wrestling with depression, which is something I did for a long time and actually came to MAP, when I found out that I wasn't the only attorney in the state of Maine with an issue with depression, it relieved me a lot, and I got a lot of benefit. And we have a support group for attorneys dealing with depression, anxiety, and stress as well. So you can come to us completely in confidence, know that nobody else is going to know what's going on with you, and we can provide you with assistance and guidance in terms of directions that you can take and therapists perhaps that you can utilize to move forward on your recovery. I could go on forever on this, and Angela, I have no idea how long I've been talking, and I'm happy to continue on, but if you have other things that you need to address, and apparently you do according to the agenda here, I will step down at this point.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. So much great information, and we truly appreciate you joining us today. So much good information. So I will take over and go over a few minor points here and then send everyone on their way. So real quickly, going back to the slide, you can see that the governor issued EO Emergency Order 37 last week on the 28th, which basically removes the requirement for masks in outdoor settings, provided you can social distance. I'm sure most of you have heard about that at this point. The MSBA staff, especially the CLE staff, is working very hard right now, reporting your CLE credits to the Board of Overseers, especially for those of you who took some programs last week. Please be patient with us. We're getting some calls and emails. We are getting that information over to the overseers, and they are working hard to update the portals. Next week, we have ABA President, the ABA President joining us. So hopefully you'll come back next Monday and listen to Trish, I think it's Rifo. I'm not exactly sure how to say her last name. Wellness tip today is related to day one of Wellbeing Week, which is physical well-being. Easiest thing you can do is get out there and take a walk. That's a link to an article you can read. Super simple, doesn't require any special equipment, and it's good for your physical and emotional well-being. And finally, I added the gratitude today. It's sunrises, and that came to me because I saw this when I woke up this morning. So my husband took a picture of that, and couldn't be more grateful than seeing that when I woke up. So with that, I want to thank Bill for joining us today. Thank you so much, Bill.
Angela, can I jump in for a moment?
I'm sorry?
Can I jump in? I realize I neglected something, so can I jump in for just in a moment?
Sure.
I didn't give the contact information for MAP.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Our phone number is 266-5951 in area code 207, of course. So it's 266-5951. If you want to get in contact with us, that's the best way to do it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bill. Sorry about that. I should have thought of that too. But thank you for being here today. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. I wish you all a great well-being focused week, and we'll see you next week. Take care.